I never thought I'd feel this way at 26. It's like I'm standing still on a treadmill that only speeds up, faster and faster, and no matter how hard I try to run, I'm just stuck. Every month feels like a balancing act on a tightrope, and the slightest misstep sends me into a free fall. The money I make is supposed to cover rent, food, bills, transportation, maybe even a bit left over for fun or saving. But it doesn't. Not anymore. I work 2 part-time jobs, one at a coffee shop and the other doing data entry for a small company. The pay isn't great, but it's steady, or at least it was until the last rent increase. I remember when I first moved out of my parents' place, thinking, okay, I'll make it work. It's just a little pinch now, but things will get better. That was 3 years ago. Since then, rent has crept up twice, groceries have gotten pricier, gas costs have doubled, and utilities keep spiking. Meanwhile, my hours have stayed mostly the same, sometimes even cut back when business is slow. I can't catch a break. Every morning, before I even get out of bed, I think about money. Not in a casual way, more like an anxious weight pressing on my chest. Can I afford the bus ticket? Do I have enough left for lunch? Should I skip breakfast to save a few dollars? It's exhausting. By the time I get to work, I'm already drained, and that's before I've even made a coffee or typed a single line of data. I used to love cooking, trying out recipes I found online, imagining dinner parties with friends. Now, it's mostly ramen or whatever's on sale at the corner store. Sometimes, I'll splurge on fresh vegetables or a decent cut of meat, but then I regret it because I have to tighten the belt somewhere else. The fridge is mostly full of canned goods and frozen meals. It's not the life I imagined. I've stopped going out as much, too. I used to meet friends for drinks or movie nights, but the costs add up fast. Between tickets, snacks, and transport, it's almost like I'm working just to pay for socializing. Sometimes I wonder if I'm missing out on experiences that others my age take for granted. Birthdays, weekends away, even casual dates feel out of reach when you're constantly counting cents. There's also the shame. I feel it every time I have to explain why I can't chip in for something or why I'm always busy when friends invite me out. I want to be honest, but it's hard to say, I can't afford this right now. People don't always understand. Some tell me to just budget better or find a better job, but it's not that simple. I'm applying everywhere I can, sending out resumes, going to interviews, but the market is tough, and everyone seems to want more experience than I have or skills I'm still developing. It's like there's a barrier I can't break through. Sometimes I stay up late, scrolling through social media, and I see glimpses of lives I feel are so far from mine. Friends traveling, posting pictures of new gadgets or dinners at trendy restaurants. I try not to compare myself, but it's hard not to feel invisible or left behind. I remind myself that those posts are highlights, not the whole story, but still, it stings. The financial pressure seeps into everything, the little decisions, the big ones, the moments I should be carefree but can't be. I've had to postpone so many dreams, a trip I wanted to take to visit family abroad, going back to school to finish my degree, even saving for a car so I could get to work easier. Each time, it feels like a door closing softly but firmly, locking me in this cycle of survival. Coping isn't easy. I try to distract myself with music or books, but my mind always drifts back to the numbers. I journal sometimes, just to get the thoughts out of my head, even if no one else reads them. I've started small mindfulness exercises, trying to ground myself and remember there's more to life than this struggle. But when rent is due, or the power bill comes, those moments of calm are fragile. I want to believe there's a way out. I hold on to the hope that with persistence, things will improve, that maybe a better job, a side hustle, or some unexpected opportunity will come along. I dream of a time when I don't have to check my bank balance 3 times a day or say no to things because they cost money. I want to feel free, to breathe without the constant tightness in my chest. The system feels rigged sometimes, like the cost of living grows faster than any paycheck could. It's a race where I'm always behind, and the finish line keeps moving farther away. But I'm still here. Still trying. Still hoping. I don't want pity, I just want people to understand that financial pressure isn't just about numbers. It's about feeling trapped, worn down, and sometimes invisible. But it's also about resilience. Even in the toughest moments, I remind myself that this isn't the whole story of my life. There's still a chapter waiting to be written, one where I'm not defined by dollars and cents, but by the strength it took to keep going. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. I wake up most mornings with this heavy weight on my chest, even before my feet hit the floor. It's not just the usual morning grogginess or the leftover stress from yesterday. It's the pressure, the relentless, grinding pressure of money, or more precisely, the lack of it. I'm 27 now, and every day feels like I'm swimming upstream in a river that's only getting faster and more unforgiving. The thing about financial pressure isn't just about numbers on a bank statement or the exact amount left in my checking account. It's the constant calculation running through my mind every minute I'm awake. What can I afford? What do I have to skip this month? Which bill can I only partially pay, and what will that mean when the next statement arrives? The economy seems to be designed like a trap, where expenses inflate like balloons tied to my ankles while my income remains stubbornly stuck to the ground. Every raise I get is swallowed up by rising rent, groceries, utilities, the basic things that aren't supposed to be luxuries but feel that way now. I remember when I first moved out of my parents' house. There was a rush of freedom, sure, but also a deep anxiety. I had a decent entry-level job then, and I thought I was doing okay. Rent was cheaper, and I could still go out with friends without feeling guilty. Now, those days feel like a different lifetime. The rent I pay has almost doubled, and it's no longer a modest apartment but a cramped studio I share with my cat. My paycheck might be a bit higher, but it barely covers the basics, let alone those little extras that make life feel alive. Everyday decisions have become these stressful puzzles. When I go to the grocery store, I pick up my list and start calculating before I even get to the checkout. Do I buy the fresh vegetables that will spoil quickly or the canned beans that last longer but don't feel as nourishing? Should I skip the coffee I love to save $5 a week? Can I afford to fill my gas tank fully, or do I just add enough to get me through to payday? These are not small choices, they're constant reminders of what I don't have and what I've had to give up. Sometimes, I catch myself wondering what it would feel like not to worry about money. To have the luxury of planning trips or investing in hobbies without mentally subtracting every expense. To open my fridge and see a variety of food, not just what's on sale or the cheapest option available. To go to the doctor without calculating whether the copay will break my budget. These thoughts make me feel both wistful and angry because I know those dreams are not impossible for others, they're just out of reach for me right now. Emotionally, it's exhausting. The stress gnaws at me in quiet moments. It's in the way I can't fully relax when I hang out with friends, always checking my phone for work emails or banking alerts. It's in the nights when I lie awake worrying about what happens if I lose my job or if an unexpected bill comes in. It's in the low-grade shame I feel when I decline invitations or don't answer calls because I can't afford the social costs. The financial pressure isolates me, even when I'm surrounded by people who care. But I try to cope. I've gotten better at budgeting, at finding tiny ways to stretch every dollar. I've learned to cook simple meals that are healthy but cheap, to barter or trade services with friends, to find second-hand clothes that still feel like me. I cling to the little things that bring joy without cost, morning walks, free podcasts, borrowing books from the library. These small victories help me survive mentally, but they don't erase the deep-seated feeling of being trapped. I feel stuck in a system that seems designed to keep me just barely afloat. My expenses grow faster than my income because everything around me, housing, healthcare, education, even food, keeps getting more expensive. Meanwhile, wages don't keep pace. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up whenever I try to slow down, and no matter how hard I run, the finish line moves further away. I can't help but feel the system is rigged, and I'm caught in the machinery, grinding day after day. I've had to postpone dreams, some that feel almost sacred. Going back to school to finish my degree? Not feasible without more money or more support. Moving to a better neighborhood or buying a home? It feels like a fantasy. Starting a savings account or investing for the future? Impossible when I can't cover next month's rent. Sometimes, I fantasize about quitting everything, leaving the city, living somewhere cheaper or simpler. But even that feels like giving up, like admitting defeat. Still, I hold on to hope. Not the kind that comes from a sudden windfall or a magical solution, but the quiet hope that maybe things will get better, slowly. That I can find ways to build a stable life, even if it takes longer than I imagined. That my work is meaningful, even if it doesn't pay a fortune. That I can find joy in small moments and keep dreaming in secret about a future where financial pressure doesn't dictate every choice. Being honest about this struggle feels like a relief sometimes. It's a way to remind myself that I'm not alone, even if the world often acts like financial pressure is a private failure. It's a systemic problem, and it shapes my life in ways I can't escape. But here I am, still moving forward, still hoping, still trying to live and breathe despite the weight pressing down. Maybe that's all any of us can do. Every morning, I wake up with this heavy, sinking feeling in my chest, like a weight I can't shake off no matter how much coffee I drink or how many deep breaths I take. It's the same feeling that settles in when I check my bank account, see my bills piling up, and realize that I'm just barely keeping my head above water. I'm 26 years old, living in a small apartment that's way too expensive for what it is, working a job that pays the bills but leaves me exhausted and dreaming of more stability, more freedom, more peace. But right now, those dreams feel like distant stars I can't reach, no matter how hard I stretch. The economic environment around me feels like a constant pressure cooker. Every day, it seems like rent creeps higher, groceries cost more, and even the little things, like filling up my gas tank or grabbing a coffee with a friend, become decisions weighed against the precariousness of my paycheck. Inflation isn't just a headline I see on my phone, it's the bitter taste when I realize my income isn't growing anywhere near as fast as the prices around me. I try to remind myself it's not personal, but sometimes it feels like the system is rigged, designed to keep people like me trapped in this endless cycle of working just to survive, never to thrive. I remember when I first moved out on my own, full of hope and excitement. I thought that with a steady job and some discipline, I could carve out a decent life. I imagined weekends exploring new parts of the city, saving up for a vacation, or even just buying things without the constant anxiety about the price tag. But reality hit hard. My rent takes up nearly half my monthly income. Utilities, phone bills, and student loans consume the rest. After food and basic necessities, there's almost nothing left for anything else. Sometimes, I catch myself calculating what would happen if I missed a payment or if an unexpected expense comes up, like a car repair or a medical bill, and the anxiety tightens its grip so fiercely I can't breathe for a moment. It's exhausting, feeling like I'm running a marathon where the finish line keeps moving further away. Friends invite me out, but I often say no, not because I don't want to see them but because I can't justify the cost. I remember one night, I stayed home while they went to a concert. I felt the loneliness creep in, not just the absence of their company, but the deeper loneliness of feeling like I'm stuck on the sidelines of a life that keeps going without me. The things that used to bring me joy, music, art, hanging out, have become bittersweet reminders of what I'm missing out on because of money. Sometimes, I cope by putting on a brave face. I tell myself that I'm doing the best I can, that I'm saving where I can, and that this is just a phase. But in the quiet moments, when the noise of the day fades, the doubts and fears rush in. What if I never get ahead? What if I'm destined to just keep scraping by, paycheck to paycheck, forever stuck in this loop? The hopelessness can feel overwhelming, but I cling to small pockets of hope, like the idea that maybe, just maybe, if I keep pushing, things will change. I've had to postpone so many dreams. I once wanted to go back to school to study something I'm passionate about, writing, something that lights a fire in me. But tuition is a luxury I can't afford. I had plans to travel, to see the world beyond the city limits, but the costs make that impossible. Even simple things, like buying new clothes or upgrading my laptop, feel like distant fantasies. It's like living in a glass box where I can see a life I want, but every time I try to reach for it, the barrier holds firm. I talk to others my age, and I realize I'm not alone. Many of us are caught in this economic squeeze, and it's shaping how we live, how we think, and what we believe is possible. There's a shared frustration, a quiet grief for the lost time and opportunities. But there's also resilience. I see it in the small acts, people sharing resources, finding creative side hustles, supporting each other through tough times. It's a reminder that even when the system feels overwhelming, community can be a lifeline. At night, when the world gets quiet, I sometimes dream about a different future. A future where I'm not constantly anxious about money, where I can wake up feeling free instead of trapped. A future where I can pursue my passions without guilt, where I can travel without counting every penny, where I can build something that's truly mine. Those dreams keep me going, even if they feel far off. Because even in this pressure cooker of economic hardship, I hold on to the hope that someday, the scales will tip in my favor. Until then, I keep making those tough daily decisions, cutting back where I can, working extra hours when possible, finding joy in small moments. I try to be gentle with myself when it gets hard because I know this isn't a reflection of my worth, just a reality of the system I'm navigating. And I keep telling myself that my story isn't over yet. There's still a chapter ahead where things get better. I just have to keep going. Some days, it feels like I'm sinking, slowly, but with no bottom in sight. Like I'm treading water in an ocean that keeps rising, faster than I can swim. The numbers don't add up, and the weight of it presses in on me, constant and exhausting. I'm 27, working full-time, but still living paycheck to paycheck. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every month, while my legs get heavier and heavier. I never imagined my 20s would look like this. When I was younger, I had dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, maybe start a small business someday, buy a cozy little apartment with a balcony for morning coffee and evening sunsets. But those dreams are on hold. Indefinitely. The cost of living these days is brutal. Rent alone takes nearly half of what I make, and it's been creeping up steadily since I moved to the city 3 years ago. Utilities, groceries, transportation, it all chips away at my budget. Then there's the student loan payments, the credit card bills from a time when I had to rely on plastic just to cover basics, the health insurance premiums that keep climbing. Every month, I sit down with my spreadsheet and watch the columns battle each other, income versus expenses. Expenses are always winning. The economy feels like a beast that I can't tame. Inflation hits every part of life. Food prices jump, gas prices spike, and suddenly that weekly grocery trip costs 20% more than last month. My paycheck doesn't increase in the same way, sometimes it feels like it barely moves at all. I asked for a raise last year. The response was a polite no, wrapped in corporate speak about budget constraints. I nodded, but inside, I felt like screaming. How am I supposed to keep up when the cost of living races ahead and my income stays frozen? I see it in my friends' lives, too. Some have moved back home because they just can't afford rent here anymore. Others are juggling 2 or 3 jobs, chasing every extra dollar, sacrificing sleep and time for themselves. I've thought about picking up a second job, but I'm already running on fumes. The exhaustion is physical and mental. I'm scared that burning out is inevitable if I push too hard. Each morning, I wake up anxious. Not about any one thing, but a cloud of worry about bills, debt, and the looming uncertainty of the future. I check my bank app, even when I know what it will say. I go over my budget again. I try to find a way to cut corners, less takeout, fewer coffees, skipping social outings. But social isolation brings its own kind of pain. I miss spontaneity. I miss feeling free. Instead, I live in constant calculation mode, always trying to squeeze a little more life out of a tight budget. And yet, I keep going. I find small ways to cope. I've learned to cook meals from scratch on a shoestring budget, which has actually become a little creative outlet. I walk to work when the weather's nice, not just to save on gas, but because it helps clear my mind. I call my family more often, even though I don't want to burden them with my worries. I try to remind myself that this is temporary, even when it doesn't feel like it. But the emotional toll is real. There's a constant undercurrent of guilt for not being able to save, for postponing big life milestones like buying a car or moving out on my own. I feel embarrassed sometimes when friends talk about vacations or buying new things, and I can barely keep up. It's isolating in a way money shouldn't be, but is. I worry about the future. Will I ever be able to get ahead? Will I always be juggling debt? I want to believe that someday, with hard work and a bit of luck, things will improve. I want to think I'll be able to afford a home, start a family, travel the world, or even just relax without financial dread clouding my mind. But lately, hope feels fragile. Still, I hold on to that hope. Because what else is there? Giving up isn't an option. I remind myself of the small victories, paying off a credit card, finding a cheaper apartment, making it through another month without falling behind. I dream quietly at night, sketching out a future where money isn't a chain but a tool. Where I'm not just surviving, but living. This system feels rigged, no doubt. Expenses rise relentlessly, while income feels stuck or even shrinking in real terms. The harder I work, the more I realize how little control I have over the bigger forces shaping my life. But even in this trap, I am still trying to carve out space for joy, for rest, for dreams. Because if I stop dreaming, what's left? So I keep moving forward, day by day, holding on to whatever hope I can muster, even when the weight of the world seems too heavy to bear. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm constantly running just to stay in the same place, gasping for air but never quite reaching the surface. It's this gnawing weight that sits on my chest every single day, a pressure that's invisible to most but painfully real to me. I'm 26, working a full-time job that pays just enough to cover the basics, but never enough to feel secure. Every month, I juggle bills, rent, groceries, and the occasional unexpected expense like a car repair or a medical bill, and I always lose. The thing is, I'm not lazy or careless. I work hard. I take pride in my job, and I try to be smart with money, using coupons, cooking at home, cutting out anything extra. Yet, with each paycheck, it feels like the cost of living grows faster than my income. Rent creeps up, the price of gas goes higher, and even the simplest grocery items cost more. I remember when I first moved into this tiny apartment, the rent was almost manageable, but now, it's eating up more than half of what I bring in. Utilities? They climb too. Internet, electricity, heating, it all adds up, and I keep wondering how people do this without breaking down. I've stopped thinking about long-term plans. Buying a car, saving for a house, even putting away money for retirement feels like a distant dream, a luxury reserved for someone else. Instead, I focus on what's in front of me, making it through this month without overdrawing my account or skipping meals. It's exhausting to live like this, like every decision is a tightrope walk between survival and desperation. There are days when I feel completely trapped. Like I'm stuck in this endless loop where no matter how hard I work, I'm just treading water. I see friends getting promotions or buying homes, and I'm happy for them, but it also stings. Because I wonder, why can't that be me? Why does it feel like I'm left behind, held back by circumstances I didn't choose? Sometimes I question if I'm doing something wrong, or if I just lack the skills or the connections. But the truth is, it's the system, the economy, that's rigged against people like me. Wages stay flat while prices climb relentlessly. Jobs demand more but don't pay more. And here I am, scraping by. Emotionally, this constant financial stress wears me down. There's a persistent anxiety that creeps into my mind, a fear of what will happen if something goes wrong. What if I lose my job? What if the car breaks down? What if I get sick? I carry these worries like a heavy backpack, and they make it hard to relax or enjoy life. I catch myself feeling guilty over small indulgences, like a coffee or a movie ticket, as if I'm betraying my future by spending on the present. But I try to cope. I lean on friends who understand and don't judge me. I write in a journal sometimes, letting my thoughts spill out so they don't fester inside. I find small moments of joy in things that don't cost much: morning walks, listening to music, watching sunsets. These moments remind me there's more to life than bills and budgets. I also hold on to hope, even if it feels fragile. I dream of a day when I can breathe easier, when I'm not consumed by financial worries. I imagine having a space that's truly mine, with a bit of room to grow. I want to travel, to see places beyond this city where everything feels gray and heavy. I want to pursue passions that got shelved long ago, like taking art classes or learning a new language. But for now, those dreams feel postponed indefinitely. I know I'm not alone in this. I hear stories from others my age who are struggling too: students buried in debt, parents working multiple jobs, people sacrificing health and happiness just to pay the bills. It's like we're all caught in this economic squeeze, trying to carve out a life in a world that often seems indifferent to our struggles. So here I am, speaking honestly about what it's like to live under constant financial pressure, not because I want pity, but because I want understanding. Because maybe if more people heard stories like mine, we'd push harder for change: better wages, affordable housing, support systems that don't leave us hanging. Until then, I keep going. I keep working, saving what little I can, and dreaming. I hold on to the belief that this pressure won't define me forever, that someday, I'll break free from this cycle. That maybe, just maybe, I'll get to live the life I've always hoped for, without the constant weight of money dragging me down. But right now, I'm just doing my best to get through today. I never thought I'd find myself here, caught in this relentless grind where every day feels like a balancing act on a tightrope fraying at the edges. I'm 26 now, just out of college for a few years, and instead of feeling the rush of starting a real life, I'm buried under this mountain of financial pressure that just never seems to ease. It's not like I'm living extravagantly; in fact, I'm barely getting by, but somehow, the cost of everything keeps climbing, faster than the little raises I get, faster than any side hustle I can squeeze time out for. Some days, I wake up with a pit in my stomach just thinking about the bills waiting to be paid. Rent, utilities, groceries, student loans, insurance, they stack up like an unmovable wall. The paycheck stretches, but it never quite reaches the end of the month. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every week, and no matter how fast I go, the ground keeps rushing closer. I'm trapped in a system where expenses grow faster than my income, and the weight of that reality crushes more than just my bank account; it weighs down my spirit. I remember when I first moved out on my own. There was this naive hopefulness, an excitement about freedom and independence. I pictured myself climbing career ladders, saving for a cozy apartment, maybe even thinking about buying a car or traveling a bit. But the numbers don't add up the way they used to in my head. When rent suddenly jumps by $100 a month or the price of groceries doubles for some basics, the dreams get pushed further and further back. I tell myself it's temporary, just a phase, but that phrase starts to lose meaning after months and then years. The economic environment feels like this invisible force, controlling my choices without ever making a sound. I can't just decide to quit a job that drains me, even if it's making me miserable, because the safety net is so thin. I skip doctor's appointments and delay fixing small things in my apartment because I can't afford the extra expense, even though I know they'll turn into bigger problems later. Social outings become rare. When your paycheck disappears as soon as it arrives, there's no margin for dinners out or weekend trips. I watch friends post about concerts or vacations, and I feel a mix of envy and shame: envy for their freedom, shame that I can't just join in. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I try to keep a brave face, but there are nights when I lie awake, heart pounding, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this is all there is, if I'll always be stuck chasing a moving target. The anxiety creeps in like a shadow, whispering that I'm failing, that I'm not doing enough. I remind myself that these feelings are normal, that this pressure is real for so many others too, but that doesn't stop the loneliness. Financial stress isolates you in a way, making you feel like you're carrying a secret burden that others can't understand because they're not living the same reality. Sometimes, I cope by dreaming, quietly, privately, about what life could be if things were different. I imagine a future where I don't have to check my bank app every day hoping for a miracle, where I can save without guilt, where I can invest in myself and my passions. I dream of going back to school to study something I love, maybe even starting my own business, but those plans seem so far away. They feel like luxuries reserved for people with breathing room in their budgets. The reality is I've had to postpone so many dreams. Travel plans shelved indefinitely. Further education on hold. Even simple things like upgrading my old laptop or investing in a gym membership seem like extravagant risks when every dollar counts. I tell myself it's not forever, but the longer this goes on, the harder it is to hold on to hope. But despite everything, I'm still trying. I budget obsessively, tracking every cent like it's a lifeline. I pick up freelance gigs late into the night, working when my body is screaming for rest, because the extra income, however small, makes a difference. I lean on the few friends who understand, who don't judge or dismiss my struggles. I remind myself that I'm not alone in this, that so many others are navigating the same storm. That helps, even if just a little. This financial pressure has taught me resilience, even if it came at a high cost. It's made me more resourceful and patient, but more than anything, it's made me painfully aware of the fragility of stability. I want to believe that someday, the tightrope will become firm ground. That I'll look back at this time not as a trap, but as a chapter where I learned how to fight for a better life. For now, though, I'm here, balancing on the edge, trying to keep my head above water, and hoping that the system won't swallow me whole. Because the alternative feels too heavy to carry. It's hard to put into words what it feels like to be caught in a loop where no matter how hard you work, the weight of money feels heavier every single day. I'm 26, living in a small one-bedroom apartment in the city, working a job that barely covers my rent and basic bills. The rest? Well, it's like chasing a shadow that keeps slipping further away. Every month, I sit down with my bank app, hoping the numbers will look better than last time. They never do. The cost of everything has gone up: groceries, gas, rent, even the occasional cup of coffee. And my paycheck? It's barely moved in the last 2 years. Inflation is a word I hear everywhere, but it doesn't really hit home until you're the one deciding between buying fresh vegetables or the cheapest canned food just to stretch your dollars. It's exhausting. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. It's like living in a cage made of numbers, bills, and constant compromises. I remember when I first moved out on my own, fresh out of college, full of hope and plans. I dreamed of traveling, of starting a creative side hustle, maybe even saving enough to buy a place one day. I imagined weekends spent exploring new parts of the city or just relaxing with friends without a cloud of financial worry hanging over me. But that was before the rent hikes, before my hours got cut, before every unexpected expense felt like a mini crisis. Now, my days blur together in a cycle of work, bills, and just enough social interaction to feel connected but not overwhelmed. I've learned to stretch every dollar: coupon apps, discount stores, cooking at home instead of eating out. I rarely buy anything new, clothes are thrifted, gifts are homemade or non-existent. Even the idea of a night out feels like a luxury I can't afford. And honestly, I'm tired. I'm tired of feeling like I'm always one step behind, like I'm constantly playing catch-up in a race that never ends. The emotional toll is harder to explain. There's a loneliness that comes with financial stress, a sense that you're isolated because you can't participate in the same ways as others. When friends talk about vacations, new gadgets, or moving into nicer places, I smile and listen, but inside, there's a knot of frustration and sadness. Sometimes I feel ashamed, like I'm failing somehow, even though I know logically that's not true. I'm just stuck in a system that feels designed to keep people like me barely afloat. I cope by trying to focus on small wins. Like making a homemade meal that's tasty and affordable, or finally fixing something around the apartment instead of replacing it. I journal sometimes, pouring out my fears and hopes on paper. I talk to a few close friends who get it, who understand the struggle without judgment. Music helps too, songs that capture this feeling of being trapped but still holding on. Still, the dreams I had when I was younger feel like they're on hold indefinitely. I want to go back to school, maybe get a degree in something I'm passionate about, but the tuition seems impossible right now. I want to travel, see new places, but I'm stuck paying rent and utilities. I want to feel secure, to save for emergencies, but that's a luxury I don't have. It's a constant balancing act, where every decision feels heavy because it could mean the difference between making it through the month or falling behind. Sometimes I wonder if things will ever get better or if I'm just supposed to accept this as my reality. But then, even on the hardest days, a part of me refuses to give up. I remind myself that this moment, this struggle, doesn't define my entire life. I hold on to the hope that with perseverance, maybe someday I'll break free from this cycle, that the system won't win, and I'll find a way to live with more freedom, more peace, and more joy. For now, I keep moving forward, day by day, paycheck by paycheck, hoping that the sacrifices I'm making today will plant the seeds for a better tomorrow. Because even when it feels impossible, that hope is all I've got. This is my story, my truth, and maybe, just maybe, it's one that others know all too well. I never thought I'd feel so stuck at 26. Not in the sense of lacking ambition or drive, no, I'm still full of plans, dreams, and restless energy, but in a way that feels almost physical, like an invisible weight pressing me down every single day. It's this constant push and pull between wanting to move forward and being held back by something I can't quite outrun, money. Or more accurately, the relentless gap between what I earn and what life demands I spend. Every morning I wake up with this nagging anxiety before I even get out of bed. It's like my brain is preloading a to-do list filled with bills, groceries, rent, gas, phone payments, and all the little expenses that stack up so quickly they make my head spin. And I know it's not just me, everywhere I look, friends and colleagues are juggling the same invisible ball, some dropping it more often than others. But that doesn't make it easier to live with. It just sharpens the sense of isolation. When I think about how the economy around me seems to be running a race I can't keep up with, it feels like I'm trapped in a loop designed to keep people exactly where they are. Prices rise, groceries, rent, utilities, even the cost of taking public transport, while my paycheck barely budges. Or when it does, it's just a fraction of the increase I need to cover essentials. I remember when I moved out of my parents' house, I was so proud to be independent, but the reality quickly hit me like a freight train. My salary, which once seemed enough, started to feel laughably inadequate in the face of rising expenses. There are days when I sit at my kitchen table, bills spread out in front of me like a cruel puzzle, trying to decide which expense to prioritize. Do I pay the credit card this month or put more money toward the rent? Should I buy groceries now or wait another day, hoping I don't run out of food? The mental math is exhausting, but it's the only way to survive. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one making these choices, or if everyone else has figured out some secret formula I haven't. The emotional toll is heavy. It's not just about money, it's about dignity and self-worth. There are moments when I feel like a failure, like I'm not doing enough, even though I'm working 2 jobs, cutting back on everything, and trying to be responsible. I hate the way this pressure makes me question myself. Am I lazy? Am I not smart enough? Am I missing some essential skill to break free? But deep down, I know the problem isn't me. It's the system. The system that seems to value profits over people, where wages stagnate while costs soar. Where security is a myth and the future feels like a mirage. I try to cope the best I can. I've become almost obsessive about budgeting and tracking every dollar. I cook at home more than ever, skipping social outings or turning down invitations because I can't afford the extras. I sell things I don't need, even things I love, just to patch up gaps in my finances. Sometimes I ask for help, though it's hard to admit. Pride makes me hesitate, but I've learned that vulnerability can be a kind of strength too. The support I get from close friends or family is like a small lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. Sleep is another battleground. At night, my mind runs wild with worries and what-ifs. What if I lose my job? What if an unexpected bill hits? What if I never save enough for something better, an apartment of my own, a chance to go back to school, even a vacation just to breathe? These thoughts twist and turn, stealing my peace and sometimes making me question if it's all worth it. The stress can feel suffocating, and there are moments I just want to scream or cry but have no one to hear. And yet, I hold on to hope, even if it feels fragile. I still dream, even if I've had to put many of those dreams on pause. I wanted to travel, to see new places, to learn new skills, to build a life that felt stable and fulfilling. Instead, I'm saving pennies, scraping together what I can to get by. But I believe, or maybe I need to believe, that this is temporary. That one day the tide will turn, and I'll be able to breathe without counting every cent. Sometimes I imagine what freedom would feel like, not just financially, but emotionally and mentally. To wake up without that crushing anxiety. To say yes to things without a second thought. To invest in myself without guilt. Those dreams keep me going, even when the present feels bleak. This ongoing financial pressure is more than numbers on a spreadsheet. It's the invisible battle that shapes every choice I make, every relationship I maintain, every ounce of hope I hold on to. It's a daily grind that doesn't just test my bank account but challenges my very sense of self. And while I'm still finding my way through this maze, I'm learning to be kinder to myself, to recognize that surviving in this economy takes courage and resilience, even on the days when it doesn't feel like it. So here I am, still fighting, still dreaming, still trying to find a way out of the trap. Not because I expect it to be easy, but because giving up is not an option. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. It's hard to put into words the weight I carry every single day. Maybe it's because it's invisible to everyone else, or maybe because it's just this constant low hum in my chest that I've gotten used to. But living with financial pressure, especially as a young adult trying to find solid ground, feels like trying to sprint through quicksand. No matter how fast or hard I try, I keep sinking deeper. I graduated college 3 years ago, full of hope and ambition, convinced that if I worked hard enough, I'd find my way out of the endless loop of part-time jobs and temporary gigs. Back then, I imagined a life where I could afford small luxuries, maybe rent a decent apartment, travel a little, and save up for the future. But the reality has been far harsher. The cost of everything, from rent to groceries, utilities to transportation, has been creeping up faster than my paychecks can keep pace. And it's like the system itself is designed to keep me tethered to this exhausting treadmill, where every step forward feels like it's just to stay in the same place. I live in a modest studio apartment in a city where the rent eats up nearly half my income. Every month, I carefully balance my budget like a tightrope walker, calculating where I can cut back. Should I skip that coffee this morning? Can I delay buying groceries until next week? Is it worth turning off the heat even if it's cold because the gas bill is already too high? The choices feel endless and draining, and there's always this gnawing fear that one unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car repair, or a lost paycheck, could unravel everything. It's not just the money, though. The financial pressure seeps into every corner of my emotional life. I feel embarrassed admitting how tight things are, even to my closest friends. Sometimes I say no to social events because I simply can't afford it, and that isolation piles up until I feel like I'm shrinking away from the world. I'm constantly anxious, second-guessing every purchase and fearing that I'm falling behind everyone else, my peers who seem to have stable jobs, own their own homes, or at least have a savings cushion. I've watched social media feeds filled with travel photos, apartment upgrades, and career milestones, and it's hard not to feel left out or like I'm failing in some way. The exhaustion is real. After working long hours, I come home drained and still have to wrestle with bills, job applications, and the nagging worry about the future. Sometimes I cry quietly in my kitchen, overwhelmed by the relentless pressure and the shrinking space between where I am and where I want to be. But I've also learned to cope in small ways, finding solace in books borrowed from the library, long walks in the park, or catching a late-night movie streaming online. These little moments help me breathe and remind me there's still life beyond the struggle. I've had to postpone so many dreams. For years, I wanted to go back to school for a master's degree, believing it would open doors to better opportunities. But the cost is prohibitive, and I can't afford to take time off work to study full-time. I've shelved plans to travel and see new places, experiences I thought would enrich my life and expand my horizons. Even simple things, like upgrading my laptop or getting a professional certification, feel like luxuries I can't justify. What keeps me going is the hope that this isn't permanent. I hold on to the belief that if I keep working, keep learning, keep pushing, someday I'll break free from this cycle. I dream of a day when money isn't the first thing I worry about every morning, when I can save for emergencies, invest in myself, and maybe help my family more. But some nights, the future feels distant and blurry, overshadowed by the relentless present. It's tough feeling trapped in a system where expenses seem designed to outpace income. Sometimes I wonder if the system even sees people like me, young adults hustling just to survive, not quite able to catch a break. I wish there were more understanding, more safety nets, more pathways that didn't require choosing between essentials and dreams. But until then, I'm learning to live day by day, finding strength in small victories and clinging to hope in a world that often feels indifferent to my struggles. This is my story, not just about money, but about resilience, vulnerability, and the quiet battles many of us face behind closed doors. It's honest and raw, because the truth is, this pressure shapes who I am, and how I navigate life every single day. I never thought I'd find myself here, in this constant squeeze, this endless balancing act where the numbers on my paycheck just don't stretch far enough to cover the rising costs of everything around me. Some days, it feels like I'm drowning in bills and expenses that grow faster than I can keep up with, and I'm stuck on a treadmill that only speeds up. I'm 26 now, trying to build a life, but it often feels like the system is designed to keep me just barely afloat, never quite letting me get ahead. I remember when I first moved out of my parents' house, filled with hope and a clear vision of what my independence would look like. I had a decent job lined up, a modest apartment, and a budget that, at the time, seemed reasonable. But almost immediately, the reality hit me hard. Rent increased after my first year, utilities crept up, groceries got pricier, and everything from gas to the cost of a simple coffee felt like it was nudging higher every week. My paycheck, however, stayed stubbornly the same. Promotions were scarce, raises minimal, and the cost of living rose like a tide pulling me further and further under. There's this particular feeling I want to describe, it's like being trapped in a glass box. You can see out, see the world moving on around you, friends buying homes, traveling, starting families, but you're stuck inside, and the walls are slowly closing in. You try to push back, to claw your way out, but the pressure only tightens. You start making smaller and smaller sacrifices, convincing yourself that this month will be different, that next month you'll catch a break. But those months add up, and the sacrifices become a way of life. Everyday decisions feel heavier than they should. Do I buy a new pair of shoes or save that money in case my car breaks down? Should I eat out with friends or cook at home and feel the sting of missing out on those moments? Do I pay off a credit card bill or cover an unexpected medical expense? The weight of these choices drains me. I've become hyper-aware of every cent I spend, not because I enjoy budgeting, I don't, but because it feels like my only defense against financial collapse. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I carry a quiet anxiety with me almost all the time, a low hum of stress that pulses in the background. It creeps in when I wake up in the middle of the night, reminding me I still owe this much, that I haven't saved enough, that my job might not be secure. It affects how I interact with people, too. I sometimes feel guilty declining invitations or avoiding social outings because I can't afford to go. I put on a brave face, but inside, there's this loneliness that comes from feeling so isolated by money worries. To cope, I've developed small routines that help keep me grounded. I journal sometimes, writing out my fears and frustrations so they don't eat away at me silently. I find comfort in little things, a morning walk, a podcast, even binge-watching a favorite show when I need to escape reality for a while. I remind myself that I'm not alone in this. Plenty of people my age are struggling, even if they don't talk about it. That shared experience somehow makes it easier to bear. But the hardest part is the dreams I've had to postpone. When I was younger, I imagined traveling the world, exploring new cities, and experiencing cultures firsthand. I dreamed of buying my own home one day, planting roots somewhere I love, and decorating it with things that made me happy. I thought about going back to school to change careers, to chase a passion that might bring me more fulfillment. All of these things feel so far away now, luxuries in a life I hope to build someday but can't afford to prioritize today. It's not that I've given up hope. I still cling to the belief that things will get better, that the hard work I put in now will pay off in the future. But some days, that hope feels fragile, like a flickering candle in a drafty room. The gap between what I earn and what I need is a constant reminder that the system isn't built for people like me to thrive easily. It's a cycle that can feel impossible to break, especially when every expense seems to multiply overnight. Still, I try to keep sight of the small victories. Paying off a credit card, sticking to my budget for a whole month, finding a better deal on insurance, these are the wins I cling to. They remind me that I'm not powerless, even if the odds feel stacked against me. I'm learning to be patient with myself, to celebrate progress rather than perfection, and to believe that one day, I'll look back at this time and see how much I survived, how much I grew. For now, I'm living in the tension between frustration and resilience, between sacrifice and hope. I'm trying to navigate a world where expenses outpace income and the future feels uncertain, but I hold on to the idea that my story isn't defined by this struggle alone. There's still a life waiting for me beyond this glass box, if I can just keep pushing, keep believing, and keep moving forward one day at a time. And maybe that's enough, for now. I wake up every morning to the same sound, the soft, persistent beep of my alarm clock. It drags me from sleep, but I don't really want to get up. Not because I'm tired, though I always am, but because I know the day ahead will be filled with the same routine battles, mostly financial, that have become the background noise of my life. I'm 25, working a steady job that barely pays the bills, and living in a city that seems to eat up every cent I make. The cost of living here isn't just high, it's a relentless storm that wears you down if you don't hold tight. I make just enough to cover rent and basic necessities, but barely enough to leave a little wiggle room. And that wiggle room? It's shrinking by the month. Inflation feels like a monster lurking in the shadows, always pushing prices higher, higher rent, more expensive groceries, utility bills creeping upward, and my paycheck just doesn't keep pace. It's like being on a treadmill that speeds up with no way to slow it down. No matter how fast I run, I'm stuck right where I started, if not a step behind. My daily decisions are filtered through a lens of scarcity. Every dollar has to be weighed carefully against urgent needs. Do I fill up my car with gas this week, or skip a few social events to save money? Can I buy fresh produce or rely on canned beans and rice again? Should I keep the heat low and risk the cold nights, or pay a higher electric bill and stay warm? These decisions, small in theory, pile up into a mountain of stress. The emotional toll is heavy. It's not just about dollars and cents, it's the anxiety that settles into my chest, the tightness that makes it hard to breathe sometimes. I'm constantly worried about what happens if there's an unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car repair, a phone replacement. Those emergencies feel like traps waiting to snap shut. I've had to learn to suppress panic when my phone screen cracks or when my car makes that strange noise again. There's no financial cushion to fall back on, and that knowledge is exhausting. Relationships suffer, too. I decline invitations more than I accept because going out means spending money I don't have. When friends talk about weekend trips or new gadgets, I smile, but inside, I feel isolated and left behind. It's hard to explain the loneliness that comes from living in a world where money dictates your participation. I want to connect, to celebrate life's moments, but the constant pressure to save forces me into quiet corners. I've had to postpone dreams, big and small. Going back to school for that degree that might help me advance in my career? Not feasible when every cent is earmarked for survival. Buying a home, starting a family, traveling the world, those aspirations feel like luxuries from another life. I'm stuck in a cycle that's hard to break out of, and sometimes it's painful to admit how much I've had to give up. To cope, I've developed routines that feel like lifelines. Meal prepping on Sundays, hunting for the best sales, using public transport instead of driving, picking up side gigs when I can. These small victories keep me afloat. I also lean on a few close friends who understand the struggle and don't judge me for my situation. Writing has become a refuge too, a way to put my fears and hopes into words, to remind myself that my worth isn't tied to my bank account. Despite it all, I hold on to hope. I imagine a future where I can breathe a little easier, where money isn't a constant source of anxiety. It's a fragile hope, often tested by reality, but it keeps me moving forward. I remind myself that this is just a chapter, not the whole story. Someday, maybe soon, the math will add up, and I'll be able to chase the dreams I've shelved for now. This is my story, a young adult navigating the relentless pressures of an economy that feels rigged, wrestling with fear and fatigue, but still holding on to the possibility of a better tomorrow. It's a story of struggle, resilience, and quiet hope. I remember the exact moment I realized I was trapped. It wasn't dramatic or sudden, no, it was a quiet Tuesday evening, just after I'd checked my bank account for what felt like the 100th time that week. The numbers stared back at me, stubbornly low, as if mocking my efforts. The rent was due in 3 days, my paycheck wouldn't cover it entirely, and I was already feeling the familiar pinch of exhaustion in my chest, the kind that settles when you know you're living paycheck to paycheck, no safety net, no end in sight. I'm 25, working full-time in an office job that's supposed to be stable, but the stability feels like a cruel joke when inflation relentlessly pushes prices higher, and my income stays practically frozen. It's like running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while the ground underneath me is made of quicksand. No matter how hard I sprint, I can't outrun the rising costs. The rent increased again last month, groceries are pricier than ever, and even the little things, gas, utilities, my phone bill, keep inching up. Every day, the economy creeps into my decisions. Should I take public transportation or risk the occasional Uber when I'm running late? Can I afford to pick up groceries or do I eat from what's left in the pantry? Is it better to skip the heating tonight and bundle up in layers, or swallow the cold and pray it doesn't affect my health? These choices aren't abstract, they are real, constant, and exhausting. They're the slow grind of survival in a world that seems designed to keep me barely afloat. Emotionally, it's a drain. The anxiety isn't just about money, it's about dignity, security, and hope. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about what would happen if my car breaks down, or if there's an unexpected medical bill. Without savings, one small emergency could shatter everything I've struggled to maintain. That looming uncertainty makes it hard to breathe sometimes. I feel stuck, like I'm caught in a cycle that's impossible to break, with each month's bills growing faster than my ability to pay them. I used to dream big. I thought about owning a home one day, traveling, even going back to school. Those dreams feel distant now, paused indefinitely. Instead of planning for the future, I'm just trying to get through today. Social outings with friends have become rare. I often say no because the cost, whether money, energy, or mental space, is too high. It's isolating, and sometimes I wrestle with shame for not being able to keep up or live the life I imagined. To cope, I cling to small comforts. I've started taking walks early in the morning when the city is quiet. It helps clear my mind and reminds me there's still beauty beyond bills and budgets. I dive into books borrowed from the library to escape, even if just for a little while. And slowly, I've begun opening up to close friends about what I'm facing. Sharing the burden, even a little, has been a relief. Despite everything, I still hold on to hope. Hope that the economy will improve, that wages will rise, and that someday the dreams I've had to put on hold won't be out of reach forever. For now, I take it one day at a time, grateful for small victories, like paying the rent on time or finding a deal at the grocery store. It's not the life I imagined, but it's mine to live, with all its struggles and quiet resilience. This is my story, an honest, vulnerable look at what it means to be a young adult caught in the relentless tide of financial pressure. And if you're reading this and feeling the same, know you're not alone. I never imagined that money would be the loudest voice in my head every single day. It's always there, a persistent hum under every thought, a shadow that grows longer with every bill I open, every price tag I scan, and every paycheck I try desperately to stretch. I'm 27, working full-time, trying to keep a roof over my head, food on the table, and some sense of normalcy in my life, but the truth is, I feel trapped. Like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up just as fast as I can move, and no matter how hard I push, I'm stuck in the same place. Growing up, I never really understood the complexity of money. My parents did their best, but finances were always a quiet background hum at home, not something we talked about openly. I thought once I got a stable job, paid my rent, and bought a few things for myself, I'd finally feel free. Instead, it's like every month brings a new surprise expense or some unexpected fee that pulls me back into the cycle of worry. Rent increases, groceries getting more expensive, utilities climbing higher, it all just adds up until I'm left holding the weight of it all, trying to decide what can't be paid this month. The hardest part is that my income has barely moved in years. Sure, I've gotten a small raise here and there, but inflation eats it alive. I watch the price of gas tick up and think, how am I supposed to keep commuting? I look at my phone bill and wonder if I can survive on less data or a cheaper plan, even though it feels like cutting off a lifeline to the world. Every decision is a balancing act, a choice between discomfort and necessity. Do I skip a meal to cover the electric bill? Do I say no to a friend's invitation because I just can't afford it right now? And honestly, it hurts. It's humiliating to constantly feel like you're one misstep away from falling into something worse. I have to remind myself not to compare my situation to others, but it's hard when social media paints a picture of friends traveling, buying new gadgets, or going out every weekend. It's hard not to feel like I'm missing out, or worse, that I'm failing. Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering how people my age seem to have everything figured out. Where did I go wrong? Why is it that for me, money feels like this impossible mountain I'm never going to climb? The emotional toll is exhausting. There are days when I feel so anxious about my finances that it bleeds into every part of my life. I'm tense at work, distracted during conversations, and too worn out to enjoy the little moments that used to bring me joy. I've become hyper-aware of every dollar I spend, second-guessing every decision until I talk myself out of it completely. Even small indulgences, a cup of coffee, a new book, feel like betrayals of some unspoken financial code I'm desperately trying to follow. Coping is a daily challenge. I try to stay grounded by focusing on routines and small wins. I track my expenses obsessively, create budgets that I often have to adjust on the fly, and try to remind myself that this situation is temporary, even if it doesn't feel that way. I've started talking about money more openly with close friends, which helps, but there's still a deep-rooted shame that makes me want to hide the truth. I'm afraid that if people knew how tight things really are, they'd think less of me, or worse, expect me to just do better. I've also found a strange solace in community resources, food banks, local assistance programs, and even financial counseling services. It's humbling, but it's also been a lifeline. These small supports remind me that I'm not alone in this struggle, that this isn't a personal failure but a systemic issue. It helps me hold on to hope, even when the days are dark. Speaking of hope, it's complicated. I used to dream about owning a home, traveling the world, maybe even starting my own business someday. I pictured a future where I had the freedom to choose, not just survive. But those dreams feel like luxury now, distant and fragile. I've had to postpone them, tuck them away somewhere safe because there's no room for extra when the basics aren't guaranteed. Sometimes I worry that putting those dreams on hold will mean losing them altogether. Yet, despite everything, I try not to give up. I hold on to the idea that change is possible, even if it's slow and uncertain. I remind myself that this moment, painful as it is, doesn't define me or my worth. I try to believe that better days are ahead, that one day I might wake up without this constant weight pressing down on me. Maybe I'll find a job that pays enough to cover the rising costs. Maybe I'll finally have the space to save, to breathe, to plan for something beyond just making it to the next paycheck. For now, I live in this tension, caught between frustration and hope, between exhaustion and resilience. I try to be kind to myself on the hard days, and on the better ones, I celebrate the small victories: a bill paid on time, a moment of genuine laughter, a night of restful sleep. These are the anchors that keep me steady. Being young and financially squeezed feels like shouting into a void where the rules seem rigged against you. But sharing this story, my story, is part of my way to reclaim some control, to remind myself that this struggle is real, that it matters, and that I am still here, still fighting, still dreaming. Because in the end, I believe that even when trapped, we can find cracks in the system, small openings where hope slips through. And sometimes, that's enough to keep moving forward. I never thought I'd find myself stuck in this kind of financial pressure, day after day, month after month. It's like a slow sinking feeling that just never goes away, no matter how hard I try to swim up. Every morning, I wake up knowing I'll have to face the same reality: my paycheck, which barely covers the basics, feels smaller and smaller, while everything around me, rent, groceries, bills, even the simplest things, just keep getting more expensive. It's like being trapped in a system that's rigged to keep you running in place, gasping for breath but never quite catching up. When I first moved out on my own, I was hopeful. I had a decent job, a modest apartment, and a few dreams tucked away for the future. I thought if I just worked hard, saved a bit here and there, I'd eventually have some freedom. But the truth is, I'm always one step behind. The rent goes up every year, sometimes more, and I can't really argue, the market's brutal. Utilities and internet bills keep rising, too, and even though I try to limit my usage, I can't cut everything out. Food prices have jumped so much I've had to swap fresh veggies for cheaper canned goods. I miss the days when I could just grab a coffee with a friend or buy a new book without feeling guilty. This ongoing struggle shapes every decision I make. Want to eat out? That's a luxury now. Need to see a doctor? I hesitate because I'm not sure I can afford the copay and medication. Even small things like getting a haircut or buying new clothes become moments where I weigh the cost against what I absolutely need. I've started budgeting obsessively: spreadsheets, apps, alarms reminding me when bills are due, but it feels like a bandage on a wound that keeps bleeding. No matter how carefully I plan, there's always something unexpected: a broken appliance, a car repair, or just the creeping increase in daily expenses that throws everything off. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There's a persistent anxiety that sits in my chest, tightening whenever I look at my bank account or an unopened bill. Sometimes I feel ashamed, like I'm failing at this adulting thing everyone else seems to manage. I try not to compare myself to others, but it's hard not to when social media paints a picture of people traveling, upgrading their gadgets, or simply living without visible worry. I know everyone has struggles, but it still stings. The isolation that comes with financial stress makes me pull back from friends or avoid inviting them out because I can't keep up. I don't want to be the person who always says no, but I don't see a way out. Some nights, I lie awake thinking about what I'd do if I had even a little more breathing room. Would I finally go back to school? Take that creative writing class I've been dreaming about? Save enough to move somewhere cheaper or start a side hustle? Those dreams feel so distant now, almost like relics from another life. I've had to postpone buying a car, putting down a deposit on a better place, even starting a retirement fund. It's like planting a garden in a desert: the seeds won't take without the right conditions. Coping with this pressure isn't easy. I've learned to be resourceful, cooking meals in bulk, using public transport, hunting for discounts, but it's a constant grind. I try to remind myself that this isn't forever, even though that feels like a lie some days. I've started journaling to get my feelings out, and sometimes I open up to a few close friends or family members, which helps a little. I also try to find moments of joy where I can: reading, going for a walk, watching a favorite show, small things that don't cost much but remind me there's still life beyond the numbers. What keeps me going, honestly, is hope. It's fragile and flickering, but it's there. I imagine a future where I'm not constantly worried about bills, where I can make choices because I want to, not because I have to. I want to build a life where money isn't the chain around my ankle but a tool that helps me grow and thrive. Maybe one day I'll look back at this time and see it as a chapter that made me stronger, more empathetic, more determined. Until then, I keep moving forward, one cautious step at a time, trying to hold on to my dreams, even if I have to carry them quietly in my pocket. It's hard to admit how much this all weighs on me, but maybe that's part of the healing, speaking out, acknowledging the struggle without shame. Because even when the system feels like it's designed to keep me down, my hope and resilience are real, and maybe that's enough to keep me afloat for now. It's strange how the weight of money can settle quietly into your bones, isn't it? I'm 26 now, and for the last few years, financial pressure has been this constant, low hum in the background of my life, growing louder each month. It's not just about numbers or budgets, it's about feeling trapped in a system where no matter what I do, the cost of living races ahead while my income barely inches forward. When I graduated college, I thought I had it figured out. I had a decent job lined up, a small apartment, and enough optimism to believe I'd eventually get ahead. But then I started paying rent and bills, buying groceries, filling my gas tank, and I saw how quickly those expenses mounted, swallowing almost everything I earned. Rent alone is more than half my paycheck now, and utilities and food keep going up every few months. I remember the first time I had to choose between buying a new winter coat or paying my phone bill. That moment hit me hard. This was my life now. Every day is a balancing act, constantly adjusting. Should I cook at home or grab something cheap on the go? Can I afford to fill my car's tank this week, or should I try to squeeze more mileage out of what I have? Even simple things feel like impossible choices. Social invitations are often declined with a quick "I can't afford it," which stings more than I expected. I miss laughing with friends over dinner or a night out, but the math never works in my favor. The emotional toll is heavier than the financial one. There's this creeping anxiety that sits in my chest, tightening whenever I think about unexpected costs, car repairs, medical bills, or even a broken appliance. Without savings to cushion me, every small crisis feels like it could spiral into disaster. It's exhausting to keep this fear at bay. I've lost sleep over it, lying awake with a jumble of numbers swirling in my head, trying to figure out how I'll scrape together enough next month. It's hard not to feel like I'm failing. I tell myself I'm doing everything right, working hard, budgeting carefully, living simply, but the system feels rigged. The wages I earn don't keep pace with inflation. The jobs I can get barely cover the essentials, and opportunities for advancement seem out of reach or require more education I can't afford. It's a loop with no exit, and it's crushing. My dreams have had to wait. The idea of buying a home, once vivid and exciting, now feels like a distant fantasy. Traveling, further education, even investing in hobbies or self-care, those are luxuries I put on hold. Instead, I focus on surviving month to month, holding on to hope that someday things will change. That hope is fragile, but it's all I have. To cope, I try to find small pockets of peace. I've started walking more, even if just around the block, to clear my mind. Books from the library are my escape, stories that transport me somewhere else for a little while. I've started sharing my struggles with close friends, and that vulnerability has helped more than I expected. Knowing I'm not alone in this feels like a small comfort in a tough world. This pressure shapes who I am now, more cautious, more anxious, but also quietly resilient. I'm learning to celebrate small victories, like paying rent on time or finding a bargain at the store. And despite it all, I hold on to a stubborn hope that the future can be better, that my dreams can live again, even if they're on pause. This is my story, a young adult's honest, vulnerable account of living with ongoing financial pressure. If you're feeling this too, know that your struggle is real, and you're not alone. I wake up every morning to the same uneasy feeling settled deep in my chest, like an invisible weight pressing down harder with each passing day. It's not just the alarm blaring me awake, it's the looming reality of bills, rent, groceries, and the endless ripple effect of costs rising faster than my paycheck ever will. I'm 27, working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet, and yet the pressure feels like a noose tightening around my throat. I used to think that if I just worked hard enough, played by the rules, and kept my head down, I could build a decent life. But now, it feels like the system itself is set up to keep me scrambling, forever chasing a finish line that moves further away every month. Rent went up again this year, a small increase that shattered my budget, forcing me to cut back on things I once thought were essentials. No more spontaneous dinners out, no more upgrading my phone or buying new clothes for fun. Even the little things, a cup of coffee, a ride share, a haircut, become calculated luxuries I have to weigh carefully. My paycheck doesn't stretch the way it used to. Inflation gnaws at every dollar. It's like swimming upstream with concrete shoes on, every extra expense drags me deeper into a cycle that's exhausting and unrelenting. I've started taking on shifts at my second job just to cover rent, and sometimes I wonder if I'm living to work or working just to survive. Sleep becomes a rare commodity, and when it comes, it's often haunted by anxiety. What if I miss a payment? What if my car breaks down? What if I get sick and can't afford the medical bills? Sometimes, I feel so trapped. I think about my friends buying homes, traveling, investing in their futures, while I'm here, putting off my dreams because I have to prioritize survival. I wanted to go back to school, maybe get a degree that could open doors to better opportunities. But every time I look at tuition fees, textbooks, and the cost of living on top of that, the dream feels like a luxury too expensive to afford. So, I tuck it away, hoping that someday, somehow, I'll find a way to reach it. Emotional well-being? That's another casualty of this pressure cooker. I try to stay positive, but it's hard not to feel defeated when your bank account and your spirit feel empty at the same time. There's guilt, too, guilt over saying no to friends, over not being able to help family, over feeling like I'm constantly behind. I catch myself withdrawing, becoming quieter, afraid to admit how hard things really are because I don't want to burden anyone. But inside, the frustration bubbles. Why is it that no matter how hard I work, it feels like the system is designed to keep me from climbing out of this pit? Yet, amidst the struggle, I found little pockets of resilience. I'm learning to be resourceful, meal prepping to save on food costs, sharing rides, hunting for discounts, and budgeting obsessively. Sometimes I get creative with side hustles or try to pick up freelance gigs. It's exhausting, yes, but it also gives me a sense of agency in a situation that often feels hopeless. I hold on to hope because I have to. I still dream about a future where I'm not drowning in debt and stress, where I can save, travel, maybe even buy a place of my own. I dream about waking up without that heavy feeling in my chest, where money isn't the first thing I think about. But those dreams are carefully guarded because I know they'll take time. For now, I focus on small victories, paying off a credit card, making it through a week without overdrawing, having a genuine laugh with a friend despite everything. The truth is, living in this economic squeeze has changed me. It's taught me the harshness of reality but also the strength in vulnerability. I'm learning to speak openly about my struggles, even if it's uncomfortable, because silence only makes the isolation worse. Maybe by sharing this, I can remind others that they're not alone, that so many of us are navigating the same rough waters. The system might feel like a trap, but I refuse to let it define me. I'm still here, still fighting, still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to keep me moving forward. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.